Hey, thanks for checking out the video. If you all like it, please like and subscribe, and hope you all enjoy it. Have a great rest of the day.
Right about face. March.
Did you say right about face?
With bad cough and coughing up blood and wasting away cold.
Arms. Trail. Trail arm. Order fire lock. Just want to welcome everybody for coming out today. Thank y'all. We do appreciate it. We're going to do a little firing demonstration here, just a couple of rounds. After we get done, if you've got any questions, we have several different kind of weapons, from military muskets to civilian rifles to Fowlers that were the granddaddy of the modern shotgun, basically. They all work the same way. There's 3 pieces: lock, stock, and barrel. They all use a flintlock, which you put your powder here. When you close this, put powder and ball down the barrel, which we'll put powder but not ball today. When you pull the trigger, this flint actually shaves microscopic pieces of steel off that spark the powder in the pan, and there's a small hole that pulls the flash into it and ignites the powder. So, I'm not going to talk anymore. We're just going to let shoot a couple of times, and then I'll about face them, and if y'all have any questions, please let us know, okay? Shoulder, fire locks. Prime and load. Make, ready, take aim, fire, prime and load. Make, ready, present, fire. Shoulder. Secure fire locks. Shoulder. Right about face. Order fire locks. Any questions with anyone?
Misfires. What happens?
Oh, classic. Mine was, when we shot earlier, I didn't go back and clean the bottom of the flint off, and the moisture in the air just gummed it. It turned it into gum. So I just wiped it and I didn't reload, and that's why it went off the second time.
Supposedly we're supposed to keep it downrange 10 seconds, wait.
10 seconds?
Then dump your powder.
Yeah.
Mine's a flint issue, so I knew it wasn't sparking.
You will see these, vent, pick, and whisk. And a lot of times you will actually have to clean the hole out. That's what that's for. Clean the hole out, and then brush the pan, get the residue out. And you're gonna look, I mean, it gums up fairly quickly.
Depending on the humidity and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And if you haven't shot for a
You
while.
do that between each shot or just as you need it?
As needed.
As needed. Okay.
As needed.
What's the distance if you had were firing a ball?
Depends on the weapon.
Okay.
There's basically three types of weapons in the 1780s time period. There was a musket, there was a rifle, and then this is a foul fire. Every one of them had advantages and disadvantages. The musket is more of a military arm, so your Continental soldiers, the British would be, and the Loyalist provincial units were issued the military arms. You notice that the stock is much heavier, it's much more robust, whereas mine is very thin. His is designed to be used as a club, and there was actually a command club muskets. So when they got close, their bayonet they didn't have a bayonet, they could club muskets and fight that way. His is designed to carry a bayonet. The whole purpose of this arm, now it's an arm, it was a firelock, but
Now it's an arm.
Now it's combined with the bayonet as an arm. The whole purpose of the musket was to fire and close distance to your opponent to get close enough to use the bayonet to push them off the field. Wins were whoever was occupying the battlefield. So that was their goal. The way the socket bayonet is made is you can still load and fire. So if a British force was on the far end of that field, they would start firing a volley, marching closer. Every 20 seconds they would be firing around, having us getting nervous and getting close enough to push us off. The rifles, as you see, the stock goes all the way to the end of the barrel. There's no way to accommodate a bayonet. You could whittle down a knife blade to put in the barrel, but then you couldn't shoot. So we would have to defend ourselves.
So
He would have to defend I would have to defend myself against him. He's got about a 7-foot reach of that monster.
now, the other thing about the bayonet is, it wasn't like a World War I where they come out of the trenches and everybody's running for their life. It was more like seeing riot police today. They wanted to push you back, so they would not break ranks, and they would get the command to charge bayonet. It's this, and they put it up under their arms
So
and
me
just start
to
marching.
defend myself, that's the reason you'll see a lot of the time the militia would immediately turn tail and run. Most of the militia from western North Carolina, western South Carolina were horse mounted. So they'd do their 2 or 3 rounds and they'd get on their horse and head home. There's not much way to defend against that. Unless you were in a very wooded terrain, much like Kings Mountain. You can defend yourself.
One of the great things we all know about Valley Forge. There was no battle at Valley Forge. It was a winter encampment, but there was a German, a Prussian, Baron von Steuben, and he taught the Americans how to use the bayonet. And they always show pictures of him drilling soldiers. It wasn't the individual drill. Most Americans knew an individual drill. It was maneuvering hundreds of men in mass. Like, we came up here in a straight line, we're militia. Continentals would have come up here too deep and turned and never presented their side.
We talked about the high rate of fire, fairly inaccurate. A musket can hit a man-sized target 60 to 80 yards fairly well. In 1778, Washington ordered that the rounds, the paper prepared cartridges that they load off of, to be loaded with a round ball that's undersized and 3 pieces of buckshot to improve the hit ratio. So he loads from a paper cartridge. A true rifle round is loaded from the horn, a piece of cloth, and then a round ball to go on it. He is 3 to 4 rounds a minute. I'm approximately 1 round almost a minute. I can hit a man-sized target at 300 yards. Slow rate of fire, very accurate. High rate of fire, not very good accuracy. But his intended purpose, like I stated, was to close the field. My intended purpose, and General Daniel Morgan, when he came and worked with Nathaniel Greene here in the South, he developed the use of combined arms. He used his riflemen, and he knew how to incorporate his riflemen because he had been one, with the use of the muskets. The riflemen were told to pick off targets of opportunity. So officers, non-commissioned officers, people of leadership,
Sergeants.
And at Cowpens, he used that very effectively. He used the riflemen in the very front. The second line was more of a militia units that had rifles, muskets, and Fowlers. And then he kept his Continental soldiers in the very rear with their bayonets and muskets. So the first rank really decimated the British troops, officers and such. They fell back, got hit again. So there was a use for all three types of weapons. But like I said, everyone had an advantage and disadvantage as with anything.
So what's the ball made of?
Lead. If you come down to the camp, I'll show you how balls were made.
The Brown Bess was 75 caliber, so it's basically a 3/4 of an inch round lead ball.
Okay.
Right. Now remember, this is before the Industrial Revolution. So every one of these pieces were basically hand produced. The muskets were built to a contract. So some of the parts could be interchangeable, but there'd have to be a lot of fitting involved. A rifle, a highly prized rifle like Greg's or Pat's here, that was crafted by hand. The barrel is made by the gunsmith. It's sheet iron that's folded over a mandrel and then hammer forged, and then it's drawn through. His goal would be to try to make a 50 caliber. It might come out 47, or it might come out 52 or 53. So with each rifle, they were also issued a bullet mold specifically for that rifle. So if the rifle and the bullet mold got separate, it was hard. It was very, very hard for them to be able to make ammunition for that. That's a great question.
Wow.
The rifle does shoot just a single round ball. There were no conical balls at this time. Everything was basically a round ball. Like I said, he could shoot a solid round ball out of the musket or buckshot and a solid round ball. The rifle had a single projectile. The beauty of the Fowler, which is the weapon that's in between, it's the modern day shotgun. I could shoot a patched round ball. I could shoot birdshot. I could shoot buckshot, or a combination of all the above. So it was more for hunting and home defense, but it worked well in the Revolutionary War.
In the back, sir, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I know you said there's a little bit of a variation, but is 50 cal pretty much the standard caliber size?
There's no standardization.
So they use these for actually hunting. These
Right,
were
I mean,
their
typically-
own
Well,
stuff. So
every gunsmith had his own.
Lathe.
It's like a barrel reamer. When they made the barrel, they actually took a piece of flat iron, put it around a steel rod, and hammer welded it.
Right.
Then they had they locked the barrel into like a vise, and they would have
It's a rifling machine.
yeah.
Right.
To
Spin the
turn the
inside.
spiral, and they pull a hardened bit through it to cut the lands and grooves.
You might get a 47 caliber, a 49.
Now,
But you wouldn't see like a 22 caliber.
well, that's the point I was getting ready to say. The early guns, the guns that were made in Pennsylvania, the rifles when they first started coming in 1750s and such, rifling was really something that came over with the Germans.
Okay.
And so in Pennsylvania, but in Germany, the woods are very dense and very deep. Their rifle barrels are yay long, but they're very heavy caliber, up to 80 caliber.
And they were hunting.
And
They were hunting wild boar.
Wild
which
boar
was-
that you needed a punch to knock
Yeah.
it down. So when the Germans came to Pennsylvania and started making rifles for the wooded areas, they realized, well, we've got a little more open area, so they increased the barrel length. So we went from the Jaeger rifle to a longer rifle. They call it a transition. So it's a heavy caliber, longer barrel. When they started coming down south and started going west to the Ohio Valley, going across into Tennessee and such, you were getting further and further away from your resources. So you didn't have lead, you didn't have powder as much. So you had to go to a smaller caliber. Back then they used the term ball. You used a smaller ball to conserve. A pound of lead with Greg's rifle, you can get 80 ball out of. A pound of lead for this thing, I can get 20. It's a 20 gauge. That's where gauge comes into play. So I got 20 balls to the pound with this. He could get 80 with his smaller caliber. So that's where that went. So as time progressed, by about the 1780s, you still had weapons that probably were an average of 54 caliber or somewhere around there.
We're John.
Any other questions? Or?
And the funny thing later on in history is you get to like the mountain man era, like the 1830s, and they get out west and you start having
They go back up.
grizzly bears,
Yeah.
buffalo.
Larger game, yeah.
Yeah, like the Hawken rifle is kind of like a callback to the Jaeger. It's shorter, much bigger caliber.
Well, where did the blunderbuss come in? I mean, was that just
That's
a
actually like a Navy.
It was a
thing,
naval.
wasn't it?
naval?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. easier to load on a rocking barrel of the
That's
ship.
the reason.
And you'll see the swivel gun or knock gun. You'll see one that has 8 or 9 barrels to it.
Yeah.
That's what that was for.
Yeah, they used-
Knock people out of the rigging.
Like wagon drivers and stuff.
Yeah.
Against the highwaymen. So, yeah. It's like a big shotgun.
Right.